The second year of my arrangement with Sophia, things were good. We were compatible, harmonious even. We had a son. I was starting to believe this quiet happiness could last forever. Then the picture landed in my inbox. Sophia, wrapped in the arms of the ghost she'd never been able to shake. Proof that she'd never really let him go. In that single, gut-wrenching moment, I knew it was over. "I thought you had a girls' night out," I said, my voice dangerously calm. It was 1 a.m, and she just stumbled through the door. I held up my phone, the screen glowing with the picture. "So what the hell is this?" Today was our second wedding anniversary. She told me a close friend was flying in from out of town, that they were having a welcome home dinner, and we'd celebrate us some other time. I never used to care about anniversaries or holidays. It was Sophia who insisted on them, who said life needed its little rituals. So we started celebrating everything. I just put our son to bed, settled onto the couch, and was scrolling through Facebook when I saw it. A tag photo. In it, a man was holding Sophia so tightly it looked like he was trying to absorb her into his own body. After seeing that, I drove to a 24-hour convenience store and bought a can of pepper spray. Then I came home and waited. And waited. The anger built with every passing minute, a hot coil in my stomach. When she finally walked in, reeking of expensive perfume and booze, it snapped. Ever since we got married, I've been working as her right hand at Davenport Industries. I went to every schmooze fest, every corporate dinner. I was the one who ran interference, who took the drinks for her. She hadn't touched a drop of alcohol in years. And now she was home, drunk. "Liam, it's not what you think," she slurred, her eyes widening as she focused on the phone. The picture seemed to sober her up instantly. Her panic was a flash in the pan, quickly replaced by a practiced composure. "Caleb just got back from overseas. You know, in Europe, a hug is just a normal greeting." Her excuse only stoked the fire. "Is that what this is about, Sophia? A hug? You told me you were with your friends." I didn't realize Caleb Vance moved to Thailand for the full chop and tuck and now identifies as one of your girls. "What the hell are you talking about? I didn't tell you I was picking him up because I knew you'd overreact," she said, her voice rising. "We've known each other our whole lives. Our families do business together. You can't expect us to just never speak again." The moment I insulted Caleb, her defensiveness morphed into anger. "Fine," I said, my voice flat. "We're done. I told you before we got married, I don't do this. I don't do cheating. I don't do ambiguous. We'll go to the courthouse tomorrow and file." I looked her straight in the eye. "As for the assets, I'll keep my own savings. Your family's trust, the company shares, the real estate, I don't want any of it." Sophia stared at me as if she'd been struck by lightning, frozen in place. "You want a divorce?" she mumbled, disbelief coloring her words. "You'd throw all this away over one stupid picture?" "Yes, it's settled. There was no point in sharing a bed tonight." This was her villa. There were plenty of rooms. I turned and started walking toward the guest suite down the hall. "Wait." Her hand shot out, grabbing my arm. The shock in her eyes had been replaced by a furious glare, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "I don't agree to a divorce." My own voice was chillingly calm. "Do you remember what I told you before we signed the papers?" I asked. "I told you that if you ever got involved with another man, I would file for divorce immediately. And I warned you that if you tried to fight me on it, I couldn't be responsible for what I might do." Sophia flinched. 2 years of my unwavering care, my quiet devotion, had made her forget the real reason we'd gotten together in the first place. She stammered, fumbling for a defense. Finally, she whispered, "What about our son?" Sophia and I were in the same program in college. She was the campus queen, the girl my dorm mates talked about in hushed, reverent tones, so I knew who she was. The first time I became aware of her, she was known simply as Caleb Vance's girlfriend. Caleb was her childhood friend, 3 years older than us. By the time we were freshmen, he was a senior. I'd heard all about him, too. He was a notorious player, had cycled through a dozen girlfriends, none lasting more than a few months. I knew this because one of my roommates had his girlfriend stolen by Caleb and would give us nightly updates on his latest transgressions. We'd all listen sympathetically, dutifully cursing Caleb's name along with him. Then Sophia arrived on campus. She and Caleb were inseparable. Suddenly, Caleb seemed to have a personality transplant. There were no other girls. People started saying the prodigal son had returned, that he'd finally been tamed. One was the untouchable beauty, the other a rich kid from a powerful family. They were our department's power couple. It wasn't until much later, after Sophia and I got together, that she told me they had never actually dated. She'd just been trailing after him her whole life, a loyal sidekick in a one-sided love story. My real intersection with her life came when Caleb, in his senior year, announced he was going to grad school abroad. Sophia was devastated. She begged him to stay, to get his master's here, so they could join her family's company together after she graduated. Caleb refused, boarded a plane, and left her behind. After he was gone, Sophia fell into a deep depression. I'd see her sitting by the campus lake for hours, just staring into the water. Her vacant expression was terrifyingly familiar. It was the same look I'd seen on my father's face. I became obsessed with the fear that she would do something irreversible. I started making a point to walk by the lake, just to check on her. And then one day, she jumped. Luckily, I was close by. I'm a strong swimmer. I pulled her out of the water, sputtering and shivering. When the campus administration came to investigate, I lied to protect her reputation. I told them she was just feeding the ducks, slipped on the wet bank, and fell in. The next week, a new sign went up. No feeding waterfowl. The incident was forgotten. Because I had failed to save my father, seeing his shadow in Sophia triggered something in me. I started looking out for her. I'd bring her coffee, text her encouraging words. I even consulted a therapist on how to help someone in her state. To everyone else, I was just another suitor, the guy trying to swoop in while she was vulnerable. They whispered that I was a gold digger, that I'd targeted her for her family's money. After all, I told everyone I was a poor orphan. My relentless, platonic attention seemed to work. It gave her something else to focus on. A year later, she was slowly pulling out of the fog. She still had moments where she'd drift off, probably thinking about Caleb, but at least she wasn't a danger to herself anymore. My job was done. It was time for a graceful exit. Besides, I was a senior now, and she was a junior. I had internships to find, a career to start. I didn't have time to be her emotional support animal anymore. I never expected her to come looking for me. After 2 months of silence, she showed up at my off-campus apartment. Even during the year I'd been her self-appointed guardian, she'd mostly been aloof and dismissive. To avoid any confusion, I decided to lay all my cards on the table. My parents had both grown up in the same orphanage, childhood sweethearts. They both got into college, but they could only afford tuition for one. My father dropped out, got a job, and put my mother through school. This wasn't one of those stories where she left him the second she got her degree. The day she turned 22, she married him. My dad had been working in a high-end restaurant, and the executive chef saw his potential. By the time my mom graduated, Dad was a sous chef with a decent salary. They rented a small apartment, and soon, I came along. To take care of me, my father quit his job and started a cooking channel on YouTube. It took off. He was making more money than he ever had at the restaurant. By the time I was 4, he bought a house cash. They decided to have another baby, and that's when the soap opera started. My mother, at 28, was suddenly found by her birth parents. These 2 old bastards ran a massive corporation. They had another daughter, a younger one, who had apparently cut ties with the family to run off with some guy they didn't approve of. So, they tracked down my mother, their long-lost heir, and welcomed our family of 4 into their gilded world. They wanted her to take over the family business. The first thing they did was force my mother to change my name and the name of my unborn sibling to her family name, Sinclair. My mother fought them, but those bastards were relentless. They just took her ID, pulled some strings, and had it done legally. She protested, but my father, ever the peacemaker, convinced her to let it go. And deep down, my mother craved the parental love she'd never had. She didn't want to burn that bridge. That was my father's mistake. Bastards are called bastards for a reason. You give them an inch, they take a universe. They decided my father, an orphan, a chef, wasn't good enough for their high society daughter. They started pushing her to divorce him. But they were cunning. They saw how strong my parents' marriage was, so they didn't confront them directly. Instead, they arranged for some rising star in the company to start spending time alone with my mother. It was right after my brother was born. My dad was swamped with 2 kids, and my mom was overwhelmed, trying to learn the ropes of a billion-dollar corporation. This rising star was like a godsend, offering brilliant advice and guidance. They grew close. My father raised his concerns, and my mother knew it wasn't right. But she had become dependent on her mentor at work. She couldn't let him go, not until she could stand on her own 2 feet. Of course, it was only a matter of time. The old bastards orchestrated a scene. My father walked in on my mother and the rising star in a compromising position. That was it. He filed for divorce. My mother begged him to stay, but my little brother delivered the final blow. The brat, thoroughly brainwashed by my grandparents, had always seen our father as a weakling. When he heard they were divorcing, he cheered. He said he wanted the rising star to be his new dad. That broke my father. He walked away with nothing but the clothes on his back. And I, with my little backpack, went with him. He was the one who had raised me. My mother? She was a traitor. All my life, she told me how wonderful my father was, how much he'd sacrificed for her. And then she did this. To hell with her. After the divorce, I changed my name back to my father's, Collins. Liam Collins. The little brat became Mason Sinclair. My father and I lived on our own for 10 years. My mother would visit with Mason, trying to reconnect. A few years later, she finally consolidated her power at the company. She sent some guys to break the rising star's legs and moved out of her parents' mansion. But my father never agreed to remarry her. The year I turned 18, right after I graduated high school, he killed himself. That's when I found out he'd been battling depression for years. I gave Sophia the condensed version of the story. My father died by suicide because my mother had an affair. I saved her because I saw his shadow in her and wanted to fix the past to soothe my own guilt. I had no romantic feelings for her. I thought that would be the end of it. We'd go our separate ways. It's not like I'd ever crossed a line with her. I kept a professional distance, brought her breakfast, sent her motivational quotes. The few times we did hang out, it was hiking or cycling, anything to get her mind off her heartbreak and focused on living. But a few days after I told her everything, she started pursuing me. "What are you doing?" I asked when she showed up with a bouquet of roses. "I thought we'd clear the air. You're obviously from a wealthy family." I continued, trying to push her away. "My dad's dead. I've cut ties with my mother. I'm basically an orphan. We don't make sense." The truth was I never wanted to get married. And if I did, it certainly wouldn't be to a woman who was still in love with someone else. I could see Sophia wasn't over Caleb. This new pursuit of me felt fickle, contaminated. I want no part of it. "But you're a genius," she protested, trying to list my good qualities. "You were top of our class every single semester. And you're so handsome. Our kids would be beautiful." I rolled my eyes and ignored her. For the next 6 months, she didn't give up. Daily texts, occasional gifts. People on campus whispered that the lapdog had finally made it, or that this was some kind of dramatic rom-com chase. When conventional wooing failed, Sophia activated her superpower, money. An internship offer from Davenport Industries appeared in my inbox. The resumes I'd sent out to other companies all went into a black hole. You can't fight City Hall. I took the job. Thanks to my mother's genes, I was considered handsome, and with Sophia's unofficial endorsement, my supervisors at the company treated me well. People speculated about my background. A few female colleagues tried to flirt with me, but they vanished as quickly as they appeared. Sophia started bringing me lunch at the office. Everyone knew she was chasing me, and the other women backed off. Not that I cared. As long as the paycheck and bonuses cleared on time, I was fine. My college tuition had been paid for my father's life insurance. I'd refused all of my mother's attempts at reconciliation, and I hadn't taken a dime from her. Other than the old house my parents had once shared, I was broke. Time passed. Sophia changed her strategy, shifting from relentless pursuit to simple friendship. She told me her own story. Her parents' marriage was a business merger. She was a product of duty, not love. They both had separate families on the side. Caleb Vance, she explained, was her fiancé, the second son of the Vance family. Their families had pushed them together since childhood. The plan was for Caleb to marry into her family, and their firstborn would take her last name, Davenport. It was a perfect arrangement. The Davenports would have an heir, and Caleb wouldn't have to compete with his older brother for the Vance family fortune. Win-win. Sophia had grown up with only Caleb to rely on, starved for affection from her absentee parents. He was her everything. When he left for Europe, telling her he only saw her as a little sister, her entire world collapsed. That's why she tried to end her life. Then I came along. Someone who, in her eyes, wanted nothing from her. Not her money, not her beauty. Someone who was just, kind. I had, she said, shown her the light again. I felt a surge of cynical annoyance. I wasn't being kind. I was treating my own trauma. But hearing her story, I felt a flicker of sympathy. We started spending more time together as friends, grabbing dinner, even taking short trips. Then came her graduation day. With no warning, in the middle of the ceremony, she got down on one knee and proposed to me in front of everyone. To save her from complete humiliation, I didn't say no. I pulled her aside and demanded to know what she was thinking. She looked up at me, her chin held high. "I've graduated. My parents called a few days ago. They're already trying to set me up with someone. If I have to marry someone, I'd rather it be you." She took a breath, her words coming out in a rush. "We could be partners. Meal partners, travel partners. We could be marriage partners. I don't need you to love me. I just need you to be faithful. We can have a child together and make sure that child grows up happy. I don't want my kid to be born into a loveless home like I was. I know that even if you can't be a perfect husband, you'll be an amazing father." She looked at me, her eyes shining with desperate conviction. And I was tempted. I was a normal man. I had desires. I liked kids. The only reason I was so against commitment was because of my childhood. I was terrified of being hurt. But I knew I could be a good father. I could be faithful to Sophia. But could she do the same for me? You know, I can't tolerate my wife being involved with another man, Even if we don't have a fairy tale romance, I said, my voice serious. If we do this, can you promise me that? I had to ask, what happens when Caleb comes back for you? Sophia's reply was firm, unwavering. I promise. After we're married, you can be my assistant. We'll be together most of the time, keeping each other in check. She paused. And as for Caleb, you don't have to worry. He abandoned me. I'm not pathetic enough to go running back the second he snaps his fingers. After 2 days of consideration, we quietly went to the courthouse and got married. Then we went straight to a hotel and sealed the deal. When Sophia's parents found out, they were furious. But Sophia threw their years of neglect back in their faces, and they were, for once, silenced by guilt. They grudgingly accepted me as their son-in-law. They did, however, insist on a prenuptial agreement. If we divorced, custody of any children and all company shares would go to Sophia. I didn't care. The salary she paid me, $1 million a year, was an absurd fortune for a recent college graduate. We weren't exactly careful, and one thing led to another. Soon, Sophia was pregnant. As her pregnancy advanced, she handed more of her work over to me and stayed home. They say love grows over time, and they're right. Our practical arrangement slowly, imperceptibly, transformed. When she was home on maternity leave, bored and restless, she called to check on me every hour if I was out at a business dinner. Our partners would sometimes joke behind my back about how hard it must be to be a kept man. I stopped caring what they thought. After our son, Sam, was born, our bond deepened. I'd come up behind her in the kitchen and wrap my arms around her waist. She'd curl up in my arms on the couch after the baby was asleep. Life was happy, but we were two broken people. One terrified of betrayal, the other of abandonment. And when two people like that can't be completely honest with each other, it's a paradise built on a fault line, destined to crumble. The moment I saw that photo of Sophia and Caleb, the truth didn't matter anymore. Whether she had physically cheated was irrelevant. The betrayal was in the embrace and the lie. It was all the same to me. The image of my father's death flooded my mind, and all my defenses went up. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just looked at her and said, let's just get some sleep. I'm tired. At 3 a.m, when I was sure she was sound asleep, I went to the kitchen and got the can of pepper spray. I stood there for a long moment, then held it under the tap, diluting the contents with water. Just a little. I tiptoed back into our bedroom and sprayed it on her below the waist. A blood-curdling scream ripped through the silent villa. I scooped her up and rushed her to the hospital. In the emergency room, Sophia stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief and horror. What did you do to me? She whispered. Pepper spray, I said, my voice as cold and sharp as ice. All the warmth we'd shared was gone. A little punishment for not agreeing to the divorce. At the hospital, I played the part of the concerned husband, rushing around, talking to doctors. I made sure to take pictures of her diagnosis report. Later, as she lay in the hospital bed, she looked at me with despair-filled eyes, her voice cracking. We've been together for 5 years. Married for 2. Do you really want to leave me this badly? If we don't divorce, I asked calmly, will you ever feel safe sleeping in the same bed with me again? I leaned closer. Sophia, don't forget, I'm an orphan. I have no family, which means I have no weaknesses. You hurt me, I'll burn everything to the ground. That includes your precious childhood sweetheart. Do you think I wouldn't stab him the next time I see him? Your son would have a murderer for a father. I sat by her bed and calmly began to peel an apple for her. Why? She sobbed, broken. Was she afraid of my madness or horrified by my cruelty? Caleb messaged me, she explained between sobs. He said he made a mistake, that he only realized how he felt about me after he left. He said he wanted to win me back. I only went to see him to make him understand that he needed to leave us alone. When he hugged me, my mind just went blank. I froze. Are you done? I asked, holding up her medical report. When you're discharged, we're getting a divorce. Otherwise, the story of how you ended up in the hospital for meeting your ex-boyfriend will be known to every single one of your relatives, friends, and clients. It won't sink the company, but it will be the end of your social life. The moment I have the divorce decree, I'll delete everything. Do you have to be so cruel? Sophia closed her eyes in agony. She knew it was over. She knew I was serious. She would never feel safe with me again. Tonight, it was pepper spray. Next time, it could be a knife. She was filled with regret. Her excuse was a lie, and she knew it. She had gone to see Caleb because she still had feelings for him. She wanted to see him grovel, to get some satisfaction for the girl he'd abandoned. If she had truly wanted to set him straight, she would have brought me with her. That would have been the smart move. I saw right through her, but I didn't even have the energy to call her on it. What about Sam? She pleaded one last time. For our son's sake, can't you give me one more chance? I shook my head without a flicker of hesitation. If it weren't for me and that little brat, my father wouldn't have endured years of humiliation in that family. He might still be alive if he had left sooner. I would not make his mistake. Sophia closed her eyes and said nothing more. 3 days later, thanks to her family's connections, we had our divorce papers. No cooling-off period required. Caleb, I don't care what you have to do. You need to get Sophia to marry you. Immediately. At the Vance family estate, Caleb's father slammed his hand on the dining table, his face purple with rage. Why? What's going on, Dad? Caleb was bewildered. He'd had his fun in Europe and had come back intending to win Sophia back. He'd even mapped out a whole strategy to get rid of me. Then, through one of Sophia's friends, he learned that just 3 days after his return, Sophia and I had divorced. I had simply vanished. His plan to crush the man who had cuckolded him was now useless. He was pivoting, trying to figure out how to rekindle things with Sophia, but she had been stonewalling him. Getting her to the altar in a month seemed impossible. Some bastard pissed off the Sinclairs, and now they're trying to destroy us, his father fumed. If we don't get a lifeline, Vance Enterprises will be bankrupt in 2 months. We'll have to pack up and flee the country. The Sinclairs? Which Sinclairs? Caleb had been away too long. His older brother was the heir apparent, so Caleb wasn't up to date on the domestic business world. The New York Sinclairs, one of the biggest families on the East Coast. Caleb understood now. Vance Enterprises was a big fish in Chicago, but compared to a New York dynasty, they were nothing. You don't mess with that kind of power. Who the hell had been stupid enough to start a war with the Sinclairs and drag the Vances into it? His eyes shot to his older brother, Grant. What are you looking at? Grant snapped. He was up before dawn and worked past midnight every day trying to grow the family business. He wasn't the one who'd screwed up. If anything, he suspected his feckless younger brother, fresh off the plane, was the cause of all this. Ma'am, mister, Vance is here to see you again. At Davenport Industries, Sophia was drowning in paperwork, her mood already foul. Hearing Caleb's name made it 10 times worse. The chemical burns on her skin were still a raw, painful memory. If Caleb hadn't insisted on seeing her, knowing full well she was married, she wouldn't be in this mess. I'm not seeing him. A moment later, Caleb burst into her office anyway. The security guards at Davenport knew of a long-standing relationship between the two families. When he forced his way past, no one dared to physically stop him. What do you want? Sophia's tone was glacial. With my departure, her workload had doubled. The new assistant wasn't nearly as competent, and she couldn't trust them with the same level of responsibility she'd given me. Add to that the lingering physical pain, and she had absolutely no patience for Caleb, the architect of her misery, even if he was once the man she'd dreamed of. Sophia, are you really this angry with me? Caleb's heart sank. He had always believed he was her one true love. Sophia was stunningly beautiful. He'd always been attracted to her. He just hadn't wanted to settle down so young. He knew she wasn't the type of woman who would tolerate him playing around after marriage. So he'd gone to Europe, setting a personal goal for himself: sleep with 1,000 women. Once he hit his target, he'd come back and marry her. He was shocked when he heard she'd gotten married just 2 years after he left. He considered flying back to crash the wedding, but then he reasoned that she was used goods now, and he was still 300 women short of his goal. So he'd waited another year. He'd assumed winning her back would be easy. At the airport, everything had seemed fine. They went out for drinks with friends. He'd waxed poetic about his regrets, and she hadn't refuted any of it. He thought he was in. Then, a day later, her attitude had done a complete 180. I heard your husband divorced you because you came to meet me, he said, trying a sympathetic angle. I feel terrible about it. Maybe I can go talk to him, explain things. Get out, she seethed. Kevin, get him out of my office. I told you not to let him up here. Do you want to be fired? The assistant, fearing for his job more than offending Caleb, quickly called security and had him dragged away. Just then, an email notification popped up on Sophia's screen. She clicked it open. The subject line read, Caleb's World Tour. The body of the email contained a file filled with extremely graphic photos and videos of Caleb with a variety of women. After our divorce, I had disappeared. Even with her family's resources, she couldn't find a trace of me. All my numbers were disconnected, my social media deleted. She had a sinking feeling. She knew who had sent this email. Sophia slumped over her desk and wept. For a man like that, she had destroyed her marriage. New York City, Sinclair Corporation headquarters. Mr. Collins, Grant Vance is here to see you. I signed the last contract on my desk and looked up, my face a blank mask. Send him in. Mr. Vance, to what do I owe the pleasure? You're. Grant's jaw went slack. He recognized me. Businessmen aren't fools. In an instant, he understood everything. why the Sinclair Corporation was systematically dismantling his family's company. It was Caleb. That idiot brother of his really had brought this ruin upon them. You're the Sinclair heir. I frowned slightly. I disliked the title, but I had accepted the company, and I wasn't going to argue semantics. After the divorce, I'd underestimated how much I missed Sophia, how much I ached for my son. But I couldn't forgive her. The conflicting emotions were driving me mad. That's when I remembered a famous saying, if you can't beat your demons, make them someone else's problem. The Vance family was the perfect outlet. Destroying them was the price of my return. It was the one condition I gave my mother when I agreed to take over the Sinclair Corporation. As for my idiot brother, Mason, my mother, like so many guilty women, needed someone else to blame. She decided the little brat who had cheered for her affair was the real reason her husband was dead. He'd been shipped off to a boarding school in Switzerland with instructions never to return. What do you want? I tapped my pen on the desk, bringing Grant back to the present. I'm here to beg you to spare us, he said, his voice laced with desperation. The past few weeks had been a nightmare. Their credit lines were frozen, the banks were calling in their loans, and to make matters worse, the Davenports weren't helping. They were kicking them while they were down. Vance Enterprises was on the brink of collapse. Fleeing the country was an option, but only if the man in front of me allowed it. Otherwise, it was all too easy to end up in a car accident on the way to the airport. I tapped my pen again, considering. Sophia told me she was meeting a girlfriend the night she picked him up from the airport. I'm assuming none of those girlfriends were men. Understood, Grant said immediately. A month later, I returned to Chicago with a young woman named Chloe and 10 bodyguards. Chloe was a college student I had taken under my wing. Dead parents, a brother in school, a grandmother with mounting medical bills. I paid for all of it. In return, she signed an IOU for $30 million. As long as she remained loyal, the debt would never be called in. The Sinclair family needed an heir. This was much simpler than getting married again. I went to the karaoke club, where Caleb had taken Sophia. Sir, these are our newest hosts, the manager said, gesturing to a line of people. This is Roxy, this is Tiffany, this is Crystal, and this is Candy. Candy stays. The rest of you can go, I said. Caleb, or Candy, stared at me. Liam, are you here to laugh at me? You've already ruined me. Isn't that enough? His voice was a high-pitched, hysterical whine. I never even did anything to you. If I'd known you were a Sinclair, I would have stayed 1,000 miles away from Sophia. He was completely broken. His brother had sent him to Thailand for the full package and then disowned him. When he found out I was behind it all, the regret finally consumed him. He shouldn't have gone to Europe. He shouldn't have come back to mess with Sophia after she was married. You're wrong, I said coolly. If I wasn't the Sinclair heir, do you think you'd still be alive right now, Caleb? I paused, taking a slow sip of my drink. But for the sake of my ex-wife, I'll let you live. In fact, I gestured to my men. I brought 10 of my best guys to support your new business. No, please no. A terrible, wailing sound echoed from the private room. I let out a long, slow breath. The damn finally over, Sophia. I murmured to myself. I'll give you a quick end. With that, I turned and walked out, my 10 hand-picked bodyguards swarming into the room behind me. I brought Chloe with me, shielding her from the scene. At the door, another woman was being dragged in, screaming. It was the friend who had posted the photo on Facebook. She'd taken money from Caleb and had been subsequently destroyed by the Davenports. A few years later, Sophia found out about my true identity. I made time every year to see our son, Sam. She never brought up getting back together. She'd heard what happened to Caleb. He was eventually sold to an old widower in a remote mountain town. She was terrified of me now. She had no desire to ever share a bed with me again. All she asked was that I spend more time with our son. Sam never knew his parents were divorced. He just knew his mom and dad worked in different cities. He lived with his mom, and his little sister, Chloe, lived with his dad. He could visit his father in New York whenever he wanted, and sometimes his father would come see him. It wasn't a perfect childhood, but it was happier than Sophia's had been. When I turned 40 and the two old bastards were on their deathbeds, I officially renamed the Sinclair Corporation. It was now the Collins Corporation. The news was said to have killed them.